Captain Marcus Hayes stood on the bridge of the Deep Explorer and stared at the sensor readings that made no sense. His crew had been exploring the outer edges of mapped space for 6 months, looking for new resources and mapping uncharted asteroid fields. What they found instead was impossible. The object floated in the center of a dense asteroid cluster, hidden behind layers of rock and ice that had protected it for centuries. The ship's scanners showed it was old, very old. The design was human. Not just human, but Earth-human. The kind of ship that shouldn't exist anymore. The Valiant. A Dreadnought-class warship from Earth's early space expansion era. A vessel that had been lost for 300 years. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He had studied Earth history, the old military records that showed what humanity had been capable of before the long sleep and the slow fade into obscurity among the stars. The Valiant represented something the modern galaxy had forgotten about humans. It represented power. "Captain, we are picking up something else," said Elena, his communications officer. She was young, sharp, and always noticed things others missed. Multiple signals converging on this location. Alien signatures. The Krell Dominion and the Varathan Collective. Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Both empires knew about the Valiant now. Both had detected the same signal that had led the Deep Explorer to this place. They were coming, and they would be here within hours. "How long until they arrive?" Marcus asked, his voice steady even as his mind raced through possibilities and dangers. "The Krell fleet will be here in 4 hours. The Varathan ships will arrive approximately 3 minutes later," Elena reported. She looked at Marcus, fear clear in her eyes. "Captain, we need to leave. We need to report this to Earth Command and let them decide what to do." Marcus understood her concern. The Krell and Varathan were both massive military powers. Humanity was not. To these empires, humans were a minor species, barely worth noticing. They had been explored, catalogued, and mostly ignored. The discovery of an ancient human warship would change everything, and not necessarily in humanity's favor, but Marcus also understood what the Valiant represented. If the ship was still operational, if its systems could be brought online, then humanity had something valuable, something real. Not just in trade goods or colonies, but in actual military capability. The Krell and Varathan had always treated human space as something that existed on sufferance, allowed because humanity was too weak to be a real threat. "Assemble a team," Marcus said. "We are going to board the Valiant and access whatever systems we can in the next 2 hours. Get the engineers, the technical crew, and anyone who knows ancient human technology. We move fast." Elena hesitated. "Captain, if we board that ship, and both alien fleets arrive while we are still inside, then we will have to work fast," Marcus finished. "This is our choice point, Elena. We either take this opportunity, or we hand over humanity's heritage to beings who view us as primitive." "I will not do that." The shuttle descended toward the Valiant through the asteroid field. Marcus sat in the front with his chief engineer, David Price, a man with gray at his temples and a lifetime of experience with ancient technology. The rest of the team took up the remaining seats. They had brought scanning equipment, data analysis tools, and enough power cells to run basic ship systems. If they could locate the central control area's dot as they approached the Dreadnought, Marcus could see how massive it truly was. The ship stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull scarred by the passage of centuries, but still intact. Weapons turrets lined its surface, designed for a kind of space warfare that had been refined and then forgotten by modern navies. The design was sleek, purposeful, built by engineers who understood that a warship needed to be both deadly and beautiful. The shuttle docked at an airlock that still functioned, though slowly. The doors groaned open, revealing darkness beyond. Marcus led his team inside, their suits equipped with lights that cut through the void. The corridors of the Valiant stretched before them like the bones of some ancient god. Silent and waiting, they made their way to the command center, a journey that took longer than Marcus had hoped. The corridors were maze-like, and several sections had been sealed by automatic pressure doors that had frozen in place over the centuries. David used emergency overrides that still existed in the system to force doors open. Finally, they reached the heart of the ship. The main control room was vast, with stations arrayed in concentric circles around a central command platform. At the center was the main computer interface, a piece of equipment that looked impossibly advanced and impossibly old at the same time. David approached it carefully, as if dealing with something alive. "I need power," David said. "Full power to the central core. Nothing else. If we light up the weapons or the engines, the aliens will know exactly what they are dealing with before we even understand it ourselves." Marcus authorized the power transfer. The moment the energy flowed into the main computer, the entire room lit up. Screens activated, displays illuminated with data and readouts from 300 years ago. And then something more important happened. A voice spoke, clear and precise, the voice of the ship's artificial intelligence. System reboot initiated. Military-grade artificial intelligence director online. Acknowledging new authority. Identifying command officer as Captain Marcus Hayes, United Earth Forces. "Welcome back to the Valiant, sir." Marcus felt his knees weaken. The AI was talking to him. Not to Elena, not to David, but to him. It recognized him as human and as a command officer. "How much of your systems are operational?" Marcus asked. "Core systems at 83% functionality. Weapons at 47%. Engines offline for maintenance. Shield generators functional but limited. I have been dormant for 312 years, 4 months, and 16 days. I am eager to be of service." Elena's voice came through the communicator, urgent and frightened. "Captain, both fleets are accelerating. They will be here in less than an hour. The Krell are hailing us. They want to know what we are doing aboard this vessel." Marcus looked at the screens, showing the alien fleets moving through space toward them. Massive warships filled with crews that viewed humanity as insignificant. He looked at Director's interface, at the weapons displays slowly coming online, at the power of a human past that none had expected to find. "Tell them nothing," Marcus said. "Director, bring whatever weapon systems you can online. I want those Krell and Varathan to understand that humanity has not forgotten how to fight." The Valiant began to wake up for the first time in 3 centuries. And 2 alien empires that had never considered humanity worth fearing were about to learn a very expensive lesson. Marcus made his decision in seconds. The alien fleets were approaching fast, and every moment mattered. He had to get off the Valiant with the critical systems information before the Krell and Varathan arrived. The Rector had already provided him with tactical data and a detailed assessment of what the ship could do. That was enough. "Evacuation," Marcus ordered. "Everyone back to the shuttle. David, you have the data cores?" David Price held up 2 small devices, no larger than a fist. Each contained centuries of military knowledge, engineering specifications, and weapon system designs. "We have everything the ship could give us in the time we had. The rest is in the Valiant's memory now." The shuttle disengaged from the ancient Dreadnought and moved away quickly. Behind them, the Valiant systems fully activated. Lights came on across the massive hull. The weapons targeting systems powered up with a low hum that could be felt even through the shuttle's hull. The Rector had brought the ship to full combat readiness. The 2 alien fleets achieved visual range at nearly the same moment. The Krell Dominion fleet consisted of 7 large warships arranged in an aggressive formation. The Varathan Collective had sent 6 vessels, sleeker than the Krell ships but no less lethal. Both groups transmitted demands and warnings, overlapping each other across every communication channel. The Valiant is Krell property now. Stand down, ordered the Krell commander. This vessel belongs to the Varathan Collective. All human ships must retreat, declared the Varathan leader. Marcus watched from the bridge of the Deep Explorer as something remarkable happened. The 2 alien commanders, realizing they both wanted the same thing, decided to cooperate. They began broadcasting peace signals to each other, proposing a temporary alliance to deal with the human situation. Within minutes, the Krell and Varathan had agreed to work together. But then Director revealed something that changed everything. The ancient AI had been observing the approaching fleets for hours. As the commanders discussed their alliance, Director transmitted a single burst of data to both sides. It was the Valiant's weapon specifications. Complete technical readouts showing firepower, targeting capability, shield strength, and destruction potential. All of it displayed in cold numbers that made the 2 alien empires understand exactly how powerful this ancient human warship truly was. The response was immediate. Both fleets slowed their approach. The Krell commander requested a meeting to discuss terms. The Varathan leader demanded the same. Marcus realized that Director had just changed the entire equation. Fear was a powerful negotiator, but fear also made beings dangerous. Within hours, the first cracks in the Krell-Varathan alliance began to show. Reports came in of human settlements being evacuated as the alien forces moved through nearby space. The Krell were attacking research stations. The Varathan were seizing resource colonies. Both empires were pushing outward, trying to control territory before the other side could claim it. Marcus received a distress call from the Lunar Research Station, a human outpost studying mineral deposits on a moon orbiting a gas giant. Krell warships had surrounded the station and were demanding surrender. The station commander, Captain Linda Hara, requested immediate support. Marcus made the choice that would define everything that followed. He contacted Director and gave a direct order. Bring the Valiant into the fight. The ancient Dreadnought emerged from the asteroid field like something from a nightmare. The Krell forces detected it on their sensors and began transmitting warnings. Director did not acknowledge the warnings. Instead, the Valiant's weapon systems locked onto the Krell Vanguard, 3 warships that were closing on the research station. The attack was surgical and devastating. The Krell ships were struck by precision fire that disabled their engines and targeting systems without destroying them. 3 state-of-the-art military vessels, rendered helpless by weapons technology designed 300 years before they were even built. The Krell forces retreated, carrying their damaged ships and nursing the blow to their pride. But the victory created something worse than the threat had been. It created paranoia. The Varathan Collective saw what happened and immediately assumed the worst. The Krell had made a secret deal with the humans. The 2 species had planned this together, using the threat of cooperation as cover for an actual alliance. The Varathan began analyzing the situation through this lens of suspicion and found confirmation everywhere. They looked odd when the Krell fleet slowed its advance. The Varathan interpreted it as a consolidation of territory after the humans had softened up their defenses. When Krell commanders requested a meeting with Marcus, the Varathan saw it as final negotiations before a unified human Krell push to eliminate Varathan influence from the region. The paranoia spread like poison through both fleets. Krell officers who had been willing to avoid direct confrontation with the Valiant began demanding aggressive action. The Varathan collective leadership, seeing their galactic position threatened, issued orders for an immediate coordinated assault on the ancient Dreadnought. It was at this critical moment that Marcus received a transmission from the United Earth Council. The message was clear and absolute. Marcus was authorized to use the Valiant as humanity's official representative in all negotiations. Earth was backing him completely. If he fought, humanity fought. If he negotiated, humanity negotiated. The weight of an entire species' future rested on his judgment. The Rector analyzed the tactical situation and provided Marcus with the truth he needed to hear. The combined Krell-Varathan alliance could destroy the Valiant if they actually worked together. The ship was powerful, but it was also alone. One ancient warship against two modern empires could fight, could damage both sides significantly, but could ultimately be overwhelmed by numbers and firepower. The solution was to prevent them from fighting together. Marcus made contact with the Krell commanders directly. He told them that the Varathan were planning to betray them, that the Varathan had already sent colonists to the regions the Krell claimed to have conquered. He provided false sensor data that showed Varathan ships moving into Krell territory. The information was not true, but it was detailed enough to be believable. And it spoke to fears that the Krell already harbored about their temporary allies. At the same time, he contacted the Varathan leadership and warned them that the Krell intended to eliminate them as competition. He suggested that Varathan ships were being detected and leaving Krell space, retreating in what could only be seen as abandonment. Again, the information was false, but it confirmed suspicions already present. The two alien empires, which had been allies only hours before, began issuing ultimatums to each other. The Krell demanded that Varathan forces withdraw from contested space. The Varathan insisted that Krell ships pull back or face destruction. Neither side was willing to back down. Mutual suspicion turned into hostile actions. Ships began moving to aggressive positions. Weapons were powered up. Communications became threats. By the time either side realized what had truly happened, the alliance was shattered beyond repair. The Krell Dominion and the Varathan Collective, two empires that had been preparing to eliminate humanity as a threat, were now too busy preparing to eliminate each other. Marcus watched from the bridge of the deep, explore as the two alien fleets moved apart, each convinced the other had betrayed them. The Valiant hung in space, silent and waiting, the most powerful symbol of human capability in the known galaxy. The Rector's voice came through the communication system, calm and analytical. The strategic situation has been successfully altered, Captain. The two dominant powers in this region are now focused on each other rather than on us. The humans have prevented a war by ensuring that our enemies choose to fight each other instead. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood what they had done. They had used intelligence and cunning instead of firepower. They had manipulated two alien empires into working against each other. It was not the kind of victory the ancient warriors who built the Valiant would have understood. But it was a victory nonetheless. Humanity's renaissance in the galaxy had begun. Not through force of arms, but through the very thing that made humans dangerous. The ability to think, to adapt, and to turn an opponent's strength against them. The Varathan Collective did not accept defeat gracefully. Their commander, an officer named Vexter, saw an opportunity where others saw a disaster. While the Krell Dominion chose to reinforce their positions and prepare for a conflict with their former allies, the Varathan gathered their fleet and made a decision that would be remembered. Across the galaxy, they decided to commit everything to destroying the Valiant and conquering human space. Vexter was ambitious in a way that made him dangerous. He believed that if he could eliminate the ancient human Dreadnought, he could claim victory despite the collapse of the Alliance. More than that, he could establish himself as a hero of the Varathan Collective, a warrior who had faced the human threat and emerged victorious. That kind of achievement would elevate him to legendary status within his empire. The Varathan fleet began moving toward Proxima Station, the most important human installation in the region. It served as a research center, a military hub, and a commercial port. If the Varathan could take Proxima, They could use it as a base to expand into human space. But more importantly, Marcus had indicated that he would defend the station with the Valiant. Vexter planned to use the station as bait. Marcus received the intelligence reports and understood what was happening. The Varathan were no longer afraid. Desperation had made them bold. They had calculated that they had nothing left to lose, and they were willing to spend the lives of their soldiers to prove that they could match any threat the humans could present. Marcus made the hard decision. Proxima Station would be evacuated. Every civilian, every non-essential personnel would be removed before the Varathan arrived. The station would become a battleground, and Marcus was not willing to risk the lives of people who should never have been endangered by galactic politics. The evacuation began immediately. Transport ships moved in and out of Proxima Station continuously, loading people and essential equipment. Lindahara, the station commander, oversaw the process personally, making sure that no one was left behind. Within 12 hours, the station that had served as a home and workplace to over 5,000 people was empty. The Valiant moved into position as the final transport ship departed. Marcus stood on the bridge of the ancient Dreadnought, now fully staffed by a human crew that was learning to operate systems designed centuries in the past. The Rector managed most of the technical functions, but humans controlled the strategic decisions. It had to be that way. This was not a fight that machines alone could win. All human vessels have cleared the area, Elena reported from her position at the communication station. She had transferred to the Valiant when Marcus took command of the ancient ship. Proxima Station is empty. We are ready. The Varathan fleet appeared on the sensors first as energy signatures, then as actual visual contacts. 34 warships arranged in a formation designed for overwhelming force projection. It was the largest military gathering the Varathan Collective had assembled in over a century. Vexter was not taking chances. He wanted the Valiant destroyed, and he was bringing enough firepower to make sure it happened. Marcus transmitted a simple message. This is Captain Marcus Hayes of Earth. You are approaching a human installation. Turn back or be destroyed. Vexter's response came back immediately, filled with contempt. We will break your ancient ship as we break children's toys. You should feel honored to die with your ship, human. We will speak of your courage as we plow your colonies under. Marcus did not respond to the insult. Instead, he activated the ship's defensive systems. The Valiant had been designed by human engineers who understood that every warship might someday be forced to defend itself against overwhelming odds. They had built redundancy into everything. Multiple weapon systems, independent power sources, shield generators that could be operated manually if the main computers failed. The Varathan fleet opened fire. The first wave of missiles came at the Valiant in a coordinated barrage designed to overwhelm any defensive system. They were fast, intelligent, and equipped with shielding that made them difficult to intercept. Against a modern warship, such an attack would have been devastating. Against a Valiant, it was merely the beginning of a lesson in tactical inferiority. The ancient Dreadnoughts, point defense systems activated automatically. They were not the sleek, modern systems that current technology had refined over centuries. They were brutal, powerful, and incredibly effective. Thousands of rounds of fire poured out from hardened turrets, turning the incoming missiles into expanding clouds of debris. Less than 10% of the initial barrage reached the Valiant, and those that did simply bounced off shield systems that could absorb damage that would have destroyed Varathan ships. The Varathan fired again. This time, they committed their fighter craft, sending waves of small, fast attack vessels to attempt to penetrate the Valiant's defenses at close range. The Rector observed their tactics and made adjustments to the defensive fire pattern. The alien fighters died in waves. Their pilots brave, but ultimately fighting against technology They did not understand and could not counter. Vexter realized that traditional assault tactics were not working. He ordered his warships to close distance and engage in direct combat. If they could get close enough, they could use the Valiant's age against it. Older equipment was more fragile. Closer engagement would allow them to use their superior numbers to coordinate overwhelming fire on a single section of the ship's hull. The Varathan fleet moved forward, shrinking the distance between themselves and the ancient human Dreadnought. It was exactly what Marcus had been waiting for. As the Varathan ships closed in, the Valiant revealed weapon systems that had been completely hidden from external scanners. Entire sections of the hull that appeared to be simple armor suddenly opened up to reveal weapons emplacements, each equipped with devastating firepower. The ancient engineers who had designed this ship had not intended it to be seen as powerful. They had intended it to be underestimated, and then, overwhelming. The Varathan fleet paid the price for coming too close. 3 warships were hit simultaneously by weapons fire designed to disable rather than destroy. The ancient humans had understood that a ship with a crew could be made to surrender. Dead ships served no purpose. The 3 Varathan vessels lost propulsion, weapons, and communications capabilities within seconds. Their crews faced a choice: stay in crippled ships or eject to the void. Vexter watched from the bridge of his flagship as his fleet began to suffer heavy losses. He had brought 34 ships to destroy 1 ancient Dreadnought. At the current rate of loss, the Valiant would destroy his entire fleet and still have weapons to spare. The realization came to him slowly, then all at once. He was going to lose. In desperation, Vexter made his final decision. If he could not win, he would at least take the Valiant with him. He initiated a self-destruct sequence on his flagship, a last resort weapon that would turn his entire ship into a fusion explosion. At this close range, even the Valiant could not survive a direct hit from a ship, being systematically destroyed by its own reactor. Director detected the energy signature immediately and reported the situation to Marcus. The Varathan commander was going to try a suicide attack. The ancient AI calculated the probable outcomes and presented them clearly. If the Valiant attempted to dodge, the Varathan ship would still be close enough to inflict serious damage. If the Valiant stood its ground, the explosion could damage vital systems. Marcus made a choice that reflected something fundamental about human nature. He did not order the Valiant to move. Instead, he ordered Director to disable the Varathan flagship's self-destruct mechanism, a burst of electromagnetic energy, precisely calculated and perfectly executed, disabled the systems that controlled Vexter's dying ship. The self-destruct sequence froze, the reactor stabilized, and the Varathan commander found himself helpless aboard a crippled vessel surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet. His commanders retrieved him, pulling him from his dying ship to a still-functioning vessel. But the damage was done. The Varathan Collective's ambitious commander had been captured alive, removed from his flagship in full view of his entire fleet, and rendered completely ineffective. The remaining Varathan ships began to withdraw. Some were still fighting, still trying to close distance with the Valiant, but without unified command and without hope of victory, their attacks became desperate and ineffective. Within an hour, the last Varathan warship jumped into hyperspace. Fleeing the battle, the Valiant stood alone in the void, surrounded by the disabled and destroyed remains of Vexter's fleet. The ancient human warship had faced the largest military force arrayed against it and emerged victorious. Marcus stood on the bridge and watched the sensor screens as the last Varathan ships disappeared from range. Elena approached him, her expression mixed between exhaustion and profound amazement. "We won," she said simply. "The single ship beat 34 warships." Marcus nodded slowly. "We did not beat them because we are stronger. We beat them because we are smarter." because we understand that sometimes mercy is more effective than destruction, and because we built a ship to last centuries, not years. Director's voice came through the communication system. The Valiant has sustained minor damage. All primary systems remain operational. The Krell Dominion observed the destruction of the Varathan fleet with extreme interest and growing concern. For 300 years, they had been the dominant military power in this region of space. They had conquered lesser civilizations, established trade agreements with comparable powers, and maintained an unquestioned position of strategic superiority. The Valiant had changed all of that in a single afternoon. The Krell commander, a high-ranking officer named Krelter, requested a private meeting with Marcus. The message came through official diplomatic channels, and it contained no demands or threats. Instead, it offered respect and the formal courtesy that one military power extends to another when the hierarchy between them has suddenly become unclear. Marcus understood what was happening. The Krell were adapting to a new situation. They had seen what the Valiant could do, and they had immediately recognized that open conflict with humanity would be costly and uncertain. The Krell did not make decisions based on emotion. They made decisions based on strategic advantage and resource management. The math was simple. One human warship had destroyed a Varathan fleet larger than any Krell battle group. That kind of mathematical calculation did not suggest an easy victory. Marcus agreed to the meeting, but he insisted that it take place on neutral ground. A station in the disputed territory between Krell and human space served as the location. Marcus brought a small security detail. Krelter arrived with a similar entourage. The two commanders faced each other across a conference table. Representatives of species that had never truly understood each other, but were now forced to find a way to coexist. Krelter began with directness that Marcus appreciated. The Varathan collective is defeated. Their fleet is destroyed. Their commander is in retreat. The balance of power in this region has fundamentally changed. We must discuss how this affects our peoples. Marcus listened carefully as Krelter outlined what the Krell leadership wanted to believe. According to Krelter, the humans had developed advanced weapons technology in isolation, weapons that were formidable but not unlimited. The Krell suggested that formal recognition of human space, combined with trade agreements and limited military cooperation, would benefit both species. It was a proposal that sounded reasonable on the surface, but Marcus understood the underlying message. The Krell were offering to treat humanity as an equal power, not because they respected humanity, but because they were uncertain about the extent of human military capability. If humans had one ancient Dreadnought, did they have others? Were there hidden bases throughout human space filled with similar ships? The Krell did not know, and that uncertainty was making them cautious. "Your proposal is interesting," Marcus said, "but my people will need to understand what the Krell expect in return." Krelter's expression did not change, but Marcus sensed satisfaction in the way the alien commander leaned back. "We expect honesty. We expect to know the true extent of human military capability. We expect to understand whether what we witnessed with the Valiant is a unique weapon or whether your species possesses other vessels of similar capability." There it was. The true purpose of the meeting. The Krell were not interested in genuine partnership. They were offering the appearance of equality while demanding that humanity reveal the total extent of its strength. Once the Krell understood that the Valiant was alone, that it was the only ancient warship humanity had recovered, they could adjust their strategic calculations accordingly. Humanity would remain strong but manageable. A threat, but not an existential threat. Marcus made a decision that would have cost him his position if the United Earth Council had not already given him complete authority over all human military and diplomatic decisions. He told Krell the truth. The Valiant is one of many ships constructed during Earth's early expansion era. We have other vessels in various states of repair, scattered throughout human space. Some are still undergoing restoration. Some are fully operational and simply remain in hidden locations to protect our territory. I cannot give you exact numbers, as that would violate human security protocols. But I can assure you that we possess sufficient capability to make any conflict between our peoples extremely costly for both of us. It was a lie, but it was a lie structured with just enough truth to be believable. The Valiant was one of a kind, an isolated remnant of human history. But humans had once built more than one Dreadnought. Humans had once possessed a deep fleet. Those ships were long gone, destroyed by time and distance, but the records still existed. And to the Krell, the absence of definitive proof that the Valiant was unique meant that the opposite could be true. Marcus authorized his intelligence operatives to begin a subtle campaign of information leaking. Rumors would circulate through Krell channels about human shipyards hidden in asteroid fields. Careful analysis of recovered historical records would be allowed to fall into Krell hands, records that suggested multiple dreadnoughts had been constructed. The Rathan survivors would be encouraged, through indirect channels, to speak of human defenses they had encountered in human space. Defenses that seemed to suggest multiple armed stations and possibly multiple ships. The evidence was thin, circumstantial, and in several cases completely false. But it was enough to plant doubt in the mind of Krell Command. Krellter made a return visit within a week. This time, his demeanor had changed. He was respectful, almost deferential. The Krell had apparently received reports from their intelligence services, and those reports had convinced the command staff that humanity possessed multiple ancient warships and possibly maintained defensive positions throughout their territory, the Bit territory. Krell Commander presented a revised proposal. Rather than simply recognizing human territory, the Krell Dominion wished to establish a formal military alliance, joint defense of contested regions, shared intelligence, even the possibility of human officers commanding mixed Krell-human task forces in certain sectors. It was an offer of genuine partnership, the kind of offer that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. Marcus accepted the proposal with careful restraint, not displaying the satisfaction he felt. Humanity had achieved something remarkable without firing a shot at the Krell. The ancient Dreadnought, now returned from the dead, had not only changed the military balance. It had changed how the Krell perceived humanity itself. Alana brought him reports of celebrations breaking out across human colonies. The news that the Krell Dominion had agreed to treat humanity as an equal power spread like wildfire. For the first time in generations, humans were not subjects of larger empires. They were negotiating partners. They had a seat at the table where decisions affecting the galaxy were made. But Marcus knew that the situation was fragile. It was built on perception rather than reality, on uncertainty rather than genuine military supremacy. If the Krell ever discovered that the Valiant was alone, that there were no hidden fleets waiting in asteroid fields, the entire arrangement would collapse. The Krell would realize they had been deceived. And deception was something that military powers did not forgive. The Rector raised this concern during one of their regular conversations on the bridge of the Valiant. The current situation is sustainable only if the Krell continue to believe in the faithfulness existence of additional human warships, the ancient AI observed. If they discover the truth, our strategic position will become untenable. Marcus looked out at the stars through the main viewing port. Then we make sure they never discover the truth. We maintain the illusion. We let humans remain mysterious, unknowable. We become the species that cannot be fully understood, cannot be fully predicted. That kind of uncertainty is more valuable than any amount of firepower. The Rector paused for a moment, a delay that was unusual for the artificial intelligence. That approach requires extraordinary discipline and commitment. One revealed deception could destroy everything you have built. "I know," Marcus said quietly. "But we have bought time. Time for humanity to genuinely build a fleet. Time for our people to develop new technology. Time for us to grow into the role we have been given. The Valiant has shown us what we are capable of. Now we have to become what the Krell believes we already are." The Rector resumed its normal operations, accepting Marcus's decision. The ancient AI had learned something about humanity during their time together. Humans were capable of deception when necessary, but they were also capable of growth, of evolution, of becoming something greater than they had been. The Valiant, this ancient symbol of human power, had become more than a weapon. It had become a promise of humanity's future. 6 months after the Battle of Proxy Station, the Valiant was undergoing its most extensive restoration since being awakened from its long sleep. Human engineers worked alongside advanced machinery, carefully replacing damaged systems, upgrading critical components, and learning the intricate secrets of a ship designed centuries before they were born. The work was slow and detailed, but it was also filled with purpose. Marcus spent his days managing 2 separate roles that seemed impossible to balance. He was both a military commander and a political figure, representing humanity's interests across multiple star systems and in negotiation chambers where decisions affecting billions of people were made. The burden was heavy, but he accepted it because he understood that this was the moment that would define humanity's future for generations to come. The United Earth Council had established a new military branch, the Ancient Fleet Recovery and Exploration Command, dedicated to locating and restoring other vessels from Earth's early space expansion era. Teams of scientists and historians combed through old records, analyzing fragments of information that might indicate where other ships could have been lost. Expeditions were launched into dangerous regions of space, seeking the remaining echoes of human history. Nothing had been found yet, but hope remained. Marcus knew that without hope, the deception would eventually crumble. If the Krell became convinced that the Valiant truly was humanity's only ancient weapon, they would adjust their calculations, and the carefully balanced arrangement would fail. Humanity had to find at least one more ship, or had to appear to be close to finding one, or the future would become dark very quickly. But other changes were happening as well. Changes that suggested that humanity might not need to rely on ancient weapons forever. Young humans began studying advanced military science with fierce determination. Universities established new departments dedicated to ancient ship technology. Engineers competed to develop weapon systems that might equal the Valiant's capability, even if they could not match it yet. Human pride had been awakened. For generations, humanity had been content to exist in the background of galactic civilization. Now, there was an understanding that humanity could do more, could achieve more, could become more. The Krell Dominion, perhaps recognizing this shift, increased their technological and military exchange with humanity. Human officers began serving aboard Krell warships. Joint training exercises brought human and Krell crews together, forcing them to learn how to work together, how to trust each other despite their fundamental biological and cultural differences. Slowly, the alliance shifted from a marriage of necessity into something that might actually develop into genuine partnership. A situation emerged that tested the foundation of everything Marcus had built. A minor civilization, the Torvan Collective, requested human protection from Varathan expansion. The Varathan were slowly rebuilding their fleet and beginning to reclaim territory they had lost. The Torvan, who controlled valuable trade routes and mineral-rich worlds, were caught between the growing Varathan presence and the Krell sphere of influence. They asked for human military support. Marcus brought the request to the United Earth Council. Some council members wanted to refuse, arguing that humanity had enough challenges without taking on additional responsibilities. Others wanted to accept eagerly, seeing an opportunity to expand human influence. Marcus considered both positions carefully before offering his own recommendation. "We accept the protection request," he said, "but we do it carefully. We position a human task force near Torvin space, but we do not make a permanent commitment. We negotiate with the Krell to ensure they do not view our involvement as a threat to the Alliance. And most importantly, we use this as an opportunity to demonstrate that humanity can be relied upon, that we are responsible partners who care about the stability of the galaxy." The Krell accepted humanity's expanded role with what appeared to be genuine approval. Commander Krelltor visited the Valiant personally to congratulate Marcus on humanity's strategic maturity. It was a visit that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. Director revealed something unexpected during a conversation with Marcus late one evening. The ancient AI had been processing vast amounts of human behavior data, analyzing decisions and outcomes, studying how human consciousness approached problems that pure logic could not fully solve. "I have reached a conclusion," Director said. "Your species has convinced the Krell Dominion that they should be afraid of humanity. But the truth is much more profound than simple military fear. Humans are dangerous not because of the weapons you carry, but because of the choices you make. You had the opportunity to destroy the Varathan fleet completely. Instead, you disabled their ships and allowed their commander to be captured rather than killed. You had the opportunity to demand dominance from the Krell. Instead, you offered partnership. These choices reflect something that is not easily understood by species whose decision-making processes are primarily logical." Marcus considered Director's analysis. "You are saying that humans have a different way of thinking? I am saying that humans have the capacity to choose mercy, to choose second chances, to choose paths that honor both strength and compassion. It is a contradiction that makes your species unpredictable and therefore powerful. You can be ruthless when necessary, but you can also show restraint when it serves a larger purpose. No other species I've encountered has this capacity in equal measure." Marcus felt the weight of those words. The Valiant had become more than a symbol of military power. It had become a symbol of what humanity could be when given the opportunity to demonstrate its true nature. A final test came when Vexter, the defeated Varathan commander, requested asylum in human space. It was a shocking request that could have damaged the alliance with the Krell, who viewed the Varathan officer as a war criminal. Some humans argued that accepting Vexter would be an insult to those who had died defending against the Varathan. Assault Marcus made a decision that reflected everything the Valiant had taught him about humanity's true strength. He granted Vexter asylum, but not as a refugee. Instead, he offered the Varathan officer a unique position, a role as a military attaché, a bridge between human and Varathan understanding, a visible reminder that humans believed in redemption and second chances. The Varathan commander accepted, and over the following months, something unexpected happened. Vexter became one of the most effective advocates for peace between the Varathan collective and human space. He had experienced humanity's power directly, understood it completely, and chose to speak on humanity's behalf to his own people. It was a powerful endorsement that strengthened human credibility throughout the galaxy. The Valiant continued its mission, now serving not primarily as a weapon, but as a mobile symbol of human achievement and human potential. Marcus stood on the bridge of the ancient Dreadnought as it prepared for a journey to distant regions of space, seeking other remnants of humanity's historical expansion. Jump gates opened before them, leading to unexplored territory and unknown possibilities. Elena approached Marcus with reports of new colonies being established in regions that had previously been considered too dangerous. Human exploration teams were pushing further into space than ever before. The discovery of the Valiant had awakened something in humanity, a sense of possibility and potential that had been dormant for generations. What do you think we will find out there? Elena asked, looking at the stars stretching before them. Marcus considered the question carefully. I think we will find more of what we have always been. We will find challenges that seem impossible. We will find situations that demand choices between what is easy and what is right. And I believe we will make those choices with courage and compassion. That is what makes us human. Director's voice came through the communication system one final time, calm and certain. The Valiant is prepared for departure. All systems operational. Weapon systems offline. Science equipment active. We are ready to explore. Marcus gave the order, and the ancient human Dreadnought moved forward, leaving behind the era in which it had been a weapon and entering a new era in which it would be something greater. It would be a symbol of humanity's capacity to grow, to learn, and to choose paths that honored both strength and mercy. The galaxy had learned to fear the Valiant, but what it will learn to respect was humanity itself. And that respect, earned through choices made with wisdom and compassion, would prove to be far more valuable than any amount of military firepower could ever be. Two alien empires that had descended into chaos, attempting to capture. One ancient human warship now understood that they had been facing something far more formidable than mere technology. They had been facing humanity itself in all its complex, powerful, and ultimately noble potential.